No victim of this river has ever been found with their head still attached to their body. The film opens by showing a remote village living in fear. In this village, a terrifying legend circulates about a headless demon that inhabits the area around the river. It is said that this creature hunts anyone who dares to come close by, beheading its victims, then throwing the headless bodies out of the river. At first, it was considered nothing more than a myth, but slowly, victims began to fall. People grew frightened and no longer dared to approach the river. Anyone who got lost or recklessly went there would later be found dead in a horrific condition, without a head. Every time a villager went missing, the villagers immediately concluded that the demon was responsible. Until one day, this terror struck a young woman named Nga, who we will simply call Naga. Naga disappeared without a trace. Her sandals were found on the riverbank, but her body was never found. The entire village resigned itself to the belief that Naga had been taken by the river demon. No one dared to search for her. Even Liam, the village head, seemed to turn a blind eye. However, one person refused to believe it. She was Moon, Naga's aunt. Moon was convinced that her niece was still alive, or at least that there was a logical explanation behind all these events. Since no villagers were willing to help, Moon finally called for professional assistance from the city, a private investigator named Detective Kien. A few days later, Kien arrived in the village. His reputation as a solver of difficult cases was already well known. Yet the moment he set foot there, he immediately felt the aura of fear enveloping the villagers. Kien quickly looked for Moon and learned that she was at the residence of the village head, Liam. When he arrived, Kien witnessed an unpleasant scene. The village head refused to meet Moon and his guards treated her roughly.
Anh thừa biết đó cũng chỉ là viện cớ thôi mà.
Kien immediately intervened, stopped the guards, and took Moon away from the place.
Gọi bà nghe tổn thương quá.
Chào bà Hai Mẫn.
This encounter gave Kien an early signal that something was wrong with the village's authority. Moon was deeply relieved to see Kien. To her, Kien was the only hope of finding her niece Naga. The first step of the investigation began at Naga's house. There, Kien met Piha, Naga's biological father. When questioned about the last time he saw his daughter, Piha's response was shocking. Instead of showing concern, Piha was cynical. He suspected that Naga had run away with another man, since her body had never been found. Hearing this accusation, Moon became angry, but managed to restrain her emotions. Moon then invited Kien to inspect Naga's room. At first glance, the room looked tidy. However, Kien's sharp eyes caught something odd. There were shards of a flower vase on the floor. Moon explained that this was strange. Naga was a tailor and had no hobby of collecting flower vases, so where did these unfamiliar vase fragments come from? Kien then asked if there had been any strange incidents recently. Moon recalled something. A few days earlier, a thief had broken into the house. Naga caught him and fought back, injuring the thief's hand. However, since nothing was stolen, the incident was not pursued further. Kien took note of this. A failed thief, mysterious vase fragments, and an indifferent father. This was not an ordinary missing person case. With the clues at the house leading nowhere, Kien decided to go to the main crime scene, the forest near the river where Naga disappeared. At the spot where Naga's sandals were found, Kien discovered physical evidence, a type of strange plant seed. Kien brought the seed to the village shaman for identification.
Vâng. Tất cả nạn nhân của ma già thường dị tự.
The shaman explained that it was a plant seed with intoxicating or anesthetic effects. However, the shaman also issued a stern warning. If Kien believed that Naga was taken by humans, then he was gravely mistaken. The entire village knew this was the work of the headless demon, and soon enough, her body would surely appear. Thinking logically, Kien felt that something was being concealed in this village. As he walked away from the shaman's place, Kien realized that Moon had secretly followed him. Moon shared how special Naga was to her. Naga's mother had run away when Naga was young, leaving her behind, and her father Pia never truly acknowledged Naga as his daughter. Only Moon raised Naga with love and care. However, Moon's husband disliked her taking care of Naga and threatened to divorce her if she continued focusing on her niece. That was why Moon was forced to leave Naga. Years passed, and Moon eventually separated from her husband and returned to the village to atone for her mistakes toward Naga. But only a few days after they reunited, Naga mysteriously disappeared. Moon was haunted by guilt, thinking that if she had never left, perhaps Naga would have been safe. Hearing Moon's sincerity and remorse, Kien finally invited Moon to join him in the investigation.
Mà không tìm thêm được dấu vết nào của Nga, rồi bị nước cuốn theo dòng suối này mà trôi ra hồ.
Night fell. The terror of the headless demon turned the village into a place of dread. All the villagers locked their doors tightly and hung protective talismans given by the shaman in front of their houses. Not a single person dared to go out that night. Kien, who was staying in the village, could also feel the horrifying atmosphere. However, when exhaustion finally put him to sleep, the terror invaded his subconscious. Kien dreamed that he was standing by the river. There he saw Naga's severed head floating in the water. Horrifyingly, the eyes were open and the mouth was moving, screaming for help to Kien. Kien jolted awake, gasping for breath, cold sweat pouring down his body. He was unsure whether it was merely an ordinary nightmare or a clue sent by Naga's restless spirit. When the sun rose, Kien wasted no time. Together with Moon, he went around the village again to search for clues. They obtained disturbing new information. On the day Naga disappeared, she had been seen having a fierce argument with Tuyet, the village head's daughter.
Hình như họ đang tranh cãi.
Kien and Moon immediately went to the village head's house to question Tuyet. When asked, Tuyet claimed the argument was only over a trivial matter. She said Naga had made the wrong color fabric for her order. Tuyet refused to pay, and an angry Naga threatened to collect the debt from Tuyet's fiancé, a man named Tak. Therefore, it was very likely that after the argument, Naga went to see Tak. Kien quickly investigated who Tak was and discovered that he worked as a ceramic craftsman who made vases and plates. This fact immediately reminded Kien of the strange vase shards found in Naga's room. It was highly likely that the flower vase was made by Tak. Suspicion now strongly pointed toward him. Kien and Moon went to Tak's house, but unfortunately it was empty and eerily quiet. Seeing Moon was frightened, Kien told her to wait outside while he entered the dark workshop alone. Inside, Kien suddenly saw the figure of the headless demon beating Naga, but the figure vanished instantly. Kien snapped back to reality when he heard a noise behind the workshop. He ran there and finally encountered Tak. Without hesitation, Kien accused Tak of being behind Naga's disappearance and questioned his relationship with her. Cornered, Tak finally confessed his secret. He admitted that he truly loved Naga and intended to cancel his engagement to Tuyet in order to marry her. However, their love was blocked by approval and threats. Tak said that when the village head and his family found out about the affair, they threatened to destroy both Tak's and Naga's lives if he dared to break off the engagement. Hearing Tak's confession, Kien and Moon concluded that the village head's family might be the real culprits who had made Naga disappear to protect their honor. They returned to the village head's house, where Liam, his wife Vihang, and their daughter Tuyet were interrogated. They admitted they were angry with Tak, but denied harming Naga. Instead, Tuyet revealed a shocking new fact. She said Tak was a liar. He did not want to marry Naga out of love, but out of panic. Tak tried to abandon Naga after he found out that she was pregnant with his child. This revelation changed everything. Naga was pregnant with Tak's child. The motive for murder now became extremely strong for all parties. First, Tak might have killed Naga to eliminate evidence of the affair and the unwanted child so he could still marry the wealthy village head's daughter. Second, the village head's family might have killed Naga to preserve their honor so their daughter's engagement would not be ruined by a pregnancy scandal. However, all of this was still based on motive, with no physical evidence.
Còn lạ gì cái giọng cường hào ác bá này. Cô đừng có cậy thế con quan mà mở mồm vô không chúc quan liêm sống thọ nha.
Thôi.
Kien then remembered a clue that had been overlooked, the thief. A few days before Naga disappeared, her house had been broken into by a thief who strangely did not steal anything but fought with Naga, injuring his hand. Kien formed a conclusion. It was possible that Tak had sent the thief to retrieve an item he had once given Naga, the vase he made, so their relationship would not be exposed. Or perhaps the village head's family had hired a killer disguised as a thief to eliminate Naga, but the plan failed because Naga fought back. Whoever the mastermind was, the key to the truth lay with one person, the thief with the injured hand. If Kien could find him, the case would be solved. Kien and Moon now had a mission to find the thief, with the crucial clue being the wound on his hand. Kien devised a strategy to inspect the hands of suspicious villagers.
Tổ chức một cuộc thi, đó là
The search finally paid off when they found a man named Tong, a repeat offender who had been exiled by the village head to live outside the village borders because of his frequent thefts. When examined, Tong had a fresh wound on his hand. Under Kien's interrogation, Tong eventually gave in and confessed that he was the one who broke into Naga's house that night. The police even found Naga's bracelet in his shack as evidence. However, when Kien asked who had paid him to kill Naga, Tong strongly denied it. He insisted that no one had ordered him and that he had stolen purely out of financial desperation. Still, Tong provided another piece of information that was far more valuable. Tong said that on the night he fled from Naga's house, he saw something shocking. He saw the village head's wife, Vihang, and Naga's father, Piha, together in secret. It turned out that Piha and Vihang had been having an affair for years, and that night, Naga had just caught her own father cheating with Vihang. Kien's suspicion now shifted toward Vihang, the village head's wife. Kien suspected her as the mastermind behind everything.
Anh đã phạm tội trộm cắp, hình phạt.
Ai ngờ lại thấy bà Vượng lấm la lấm lét.
Cớ gì lại bắt tri huyện phu nhân?
However, when confronted, Vihang refused to confess and instead defended herself. She admitted that she did meet Naga that night, but only to threaten her. Vihang said she threatened to kill Naga if she did not stay away from Tak, her daughter's fiancé. Kien and Moon continued digging for information from other witnesses. It turned out there was one eyewitness who saw Naga meeting Tuyet in the middle of the forest. Kien immediately confronted Tuyet and pressured her with the accumulated evidence. Feeling cornered, Tuyet finally confessed everything. Tuyet explained that they met in the forest and got into a fierce argument because she was blinded by jealousy after finding out that Naga was pregnant with her fiancé's child. They pushed each other, and during the struggle, Naga fell and her head slammed hard against a river rock. Tuyet saw Naga lying motionless and assumed she was dead. Panicked and terrified, Tuyet ran away and left Naga's body there. Tuyet swore that she never moved the body. The case seemed solved. Kien immediately contacted the city police. Not long after, the police arrived and arrested Tuyet on charges of murder and negligence resulting in death. Moon cried hysterically upon facing this reality. However, one thing still troubled Kien's mind. If Tuyet truly left the body there, where did Naga's body go, and who moved it? If Tuyet abandoned Naga just like that, the body should still have been in the forest. Even though the main culprit had been arrested, the mystery of Naga's missing body remained a huge unanswered question.
Là do cô bị đặt đúng không? Điều tra phải hợp lệ. Nếu không,
That night, after the chaos of the arrest subsided, Kien tried to rest. He was eating dinner alone in his lodging, feeling that his job was finally done. Suddenly, the atmosphere changed drastically. Kien sensed the presence of someone or something entering his room. When he turned around, standing before him was the headless demon. Even more horrifying, the creature was holding Naga's severed head and devouring it greedily right in front of Kien's eyes. This was not a dream. Kien screamed as the creature lunged toward him. Fortunately, his fellow officers nearby heard the scream and broke in, saving Kien. Strangely, the moment they entered, the demon vanished without a trace. This incident convinced Kien that there was a real supernatural element at play, not merely hallucinations or false legends. Kien ordered his colleagues to investigate the history of the demon, why it existed, and who it truly was. They opened the old village archives and uncovered a horrifying historical fact. 30 years ago, a bloody tragedy had occurred in this village. A large family of 14 people was accused of betraying the village. Without a proper trial, the villagers took justice into their own hands, dragged all 14 of them to the riverbank, and beheaded them one by one. It was believed that the restless spirits of the slaughtered family merged into a single entity, forming the headless demon. The river became cursed as the site of the mass execution. However, one detail was strange. The legend had existed for 30 years, but the murderous terror and sightings of the headless demon had only become aggressively active in the last 5 to 10 years. Why did it remain dormant for 20 years before awakening now? And why was the headless demon targeting Kien? Kien stood at the crossroads between logic and the mystical. On one side, his rational mind rejected the existence of ghosts, but on the other, his own eyes had witnessed the headless demon more than once. While Kien struggled with his sanity, panic erupted at the village head's house. Vihang, the village head's wife, was in a state of desperation. She begged her husband Liam for help, but Liam refused to get involved any further. In her despair, Vihang's personal servant arrived with shocking news. The man Vihang had paid to kill Naga had not actually killed her. It was finally revealed that Vihang was the true mastermind behind everything. Let us rewind briefly to the past. When Tuyet, Vihang's daughter, accidentally pushed Naga in the forest, causing her to lose consciousness, Tuyet fled in fear. Coincidentally, Vihang's servant witnessed the incident and reported it to her. Instead of helping, Vihang saw it as the perfect opportunity to erase Naga from existence forever in order to protect her daughter's reputation. Vihang gave money to her servant to hire a hitman, and that hired killer was none other than Tong, the thief who had been caught earlier. However, Tong was a cunning bastard. When he found Naga unconscious in the forest, a cruel idea crossed his mind. Instead of killing Naga, as instructed by Vihang, Tong imprisoned her in a hidden place. His plan was to continuously blackmail the village head's wife. With this scheme, Tong could extract large sums of money. All clues once again pointed back to Tong. Kien and Moon decided to secretly follow him.
Con mời bà ngồi.
Chấp mọi thứ để có được nếu quan quân ập vào, anh có thể bỏ.
As it turned out, Tong was blackmailing Vihang once more. He threatened that if Vihang did not give him more money, he would bring the still-living Naga before the villagers and expose Vihang's disgrace to everyone. This secret meeting took place in the forest between Vihang, her servant, and Tong. Tensions escalated. Tong realized that Vihang's servant intended to betray him, so Tong immediately killed the servant on the spot.
Chỗ này là gấp.
Cornered, Vihang began pleading with Tong to hand Naga over to her so that she could kill Naga with her own hands. In return, Vihang offered all her remaining money to Tong. Tong agreed, and they headed to the place where Naga was being held captive.
Tôi giấu tiền ở gần nhà anh á.
Tao giết nó, mày còn lằng nhằng. Lấy tiền đi.
Just as Vihang was about to kill Naga, Kien and Moon appeared. A fierce battle broke out. Kien fought Tong one-on-one, while on the other side, Moon managed to save Naga from Vihang's attack.
Con điên này mà giải.
The next day, all the dark secrets were exposed. Vihang was arrested by the police for attempted murder. Tak canceled his engagement to Tuyet and was finally reunited with Naga and their unborn child. The village returned to peace. However, for Kien, the case was not yet over. One major question still haunted him. Who or what was the demon that Kien kept seeing? As Moon escorted Kien back home, she said something that became the key to answering everything. Moon explained that the creature Kien had been seeing was never actually seen by Moon herself. Yet all the villagers were believed to have consumed the shaman's protective potion to ward off the creature. Concerned about Kien's condition, Moon admitted that she had secretly mixed the potion into Kien's food every night. However, Moon herself had never drunk the so-called protective potion given by the shaman. This confession jolted Kien. He immediately examined the remaining potion. That was when the horrifying truth was revealed. The liquid was not a protective potion at all, but a powerful hallucinogenic drug made from the plant seeds Kien had found earlier in the story. All this time, it was not a demon terrorizing the village. The reason the villagers saw the headless demon and lived in fear was not because of a supernatural being, but because they had been mass poisoned. The mastermind behind it all was the shaman. A new question emerged. Why did the shaman do this? Driven by curiosity, Kien dug deeper into the village's history and uncovered a crucial missing fact. The family of 14 people beheaded 30 years ago had actually consisted of 15 members. One small child survived. That child hid and witnessed with his own eyes as his entire family was beheaded by the villagers at the riverbank. On that day, the child swore revenge. He left to study the art of poisons and years later returned to the village disguised as a shaman. His plan was both brilliant and cruel. He used his concoctions to make the villagers hallucinate and see a headless demon. Under the influence of fear and drugs, he was able to manipulate them completely. Through this method, the shaman could easily murder his enemies one by beheading them, exactly as the villagers had done to his family in the past. The villagers naturally believed that the headless deaths were caused by supernatural forces. In reality, the demon never existed, and everything was the shaman's revenge. Kien and the police immediately raided the shaman's hut, but it was too late. The hut was already empty.
Năm nay, đêm nào tôi cũng thấy.
The shaman, the true serial killer, had escaped. The film ends with Kien standing in silence, realizing that the terror that destroyed the village was not a creature from another world, but a human being who had harbored vengeance for decades, and thus the story comes to an end.
Your thoughts in the comments. I read each one personally. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to smash that like button. Let's